Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Perform Happy podcast. I'm so excited to have with me today Sage Kellerman. She is a sophomore, nearing the end of her sophomore year at Michigan State. She came out on vault with a 9.9 debut. She got her first 10 this season. I'm so excited to talk to you about gymnastics. Welcome to the show, Sage.
Thank you.
So, where to begin? Who debuts with a 9.9? That is so cool. How did that
Thank
feel?
you. It was amazing. I remember going into Alabama, my freshman year, and I was terrified to compete because, like in club, it seems so individualized. And so once you get to college, it's like for the good of the team and it's a team score. And I was just so terrified. But yeah, it was amazing starting out with a 9.9.
Well, and that's interesting because I sometimes hear the opposite where people are like, "Oh, it's so terrifying when you're competing for yourself and you're trying to get recruited." But then you got this team and you're like, "Oh, this is for the team. Okay, I can handle this." But that felt to you kind of more nerve-wracking that then the team is like riding on your performance?
Yeah. So like for me, like if I fall, I know that I'm gonna be fine. Like it's okay. Everyone falls. No one's perfect. But like I don't know when there's kind of like a team riding on your back or like when your team is counting on you and your coaches are counting on you, I just feel like that's a little bit more pressure than just yourself.
Okay, and I'm going to make an assumption that you're good under pressure.
I don't know. A lot my old coach used to say that a lot. He used to call me a gamer. Um, so I would say yes, but I think sometimes I can definitely crack under pressure if I'm not focused.
Okay, so I'm curious. I always love to know like what's going on in the minds of great competitors. So first of all, okay, nobody's perfect. It's okay to fail. Those are
Hmm.
important, I think, foundational beliefs to be able to
Right.
perform under pressure.
Hmm.
What makes you a gamer? Why would your coach have said that about you? And what do you think you do to make that possible?
So I think that certain things can push me and help me to like really like excel. And so like when I'm down at the end of the vault runway, sometimes I'm thinking about my words and like what helps me do a good vault, like the certain things that I have to think about, like squeeze my stomach or whatever it may be. But sometimes, like when I don't think at all, that's when I have my best faults because there's no pressure behind it. And I'm just doing what I do at practice every single day. And so it's just kind of like muscle memory over and over, like a robot almost.
Yes, so that's what I call self-trust. That you just start running. Now, where do you put your focus? Because I know it's like not possible to not be paying attention to anything. It's not like you're just like blank and like floating down the runway. What do you typically focus on? Is it visual? Is it words in your head? Is it a feeling in your body? Like where is your attention when you're not thinking?
So when I'm not thinking, normally it's on the table. I'm just looking at the table and I know if my table's right, like if my shape on the table's right, then all the rest of my timing will be perfect and then I can stick. So it's really a timing thing for me.
Okay. So as you're running down, are you thinking about the timing or are you just running?
I'm just running. I think it's too much for my brain to think about the timing and that everything has to be perfect, kind of like in a line, right on time. So if I just think about one thing, like maybe keeping my feet behind me on the table or squeezing my stomach on the table, then that sets up everything else for success.
Awesome. And I've heard that from a lot of great athletes that they just sort of have the one thing. And then once that one thing's in place, the train has left the station and it's going to be good. So for you,
Yeah.
it's that shape. Some people, it's like, get your hands on the hand mat and the rest will happen. And how did you get to that place of being able to trust your vault so much?
Um, I think a lot of it is numbers. I've been doing the vault for I don't even know, like 5, maybe 6 years. And so like over time it just kept developing. Obviously it wasn't this good from the start because nothing is ever amazing once you start doing it. That's what practice is for. And so I think that like continuing to put in those numbers and wanting to do better and wanting to hear different things and different corrections and different ways and words that might work for you better than they might work for someone else. I think that's a big thing for me. Certain words work in my head and sometimes it'll just click. But if a coach is saying something to me that's the same thing over and over, but nothing's happening with my body. A change isn't happening when I'm vaulting. That word isn't clicking with my brain and what I need to fix. So I think words are super important to me in a way that some help me and some don't. And now I know what words help me. And so if I'm in a little bit of a rut where I can't really get my timing right, I know the words and the corrections that I need to fix.
Awesome. It's sort of like your personal formula to vault is like
Yeah.
a certain, it's like a certain arrangement of words, and then you're good to go. And
Yeah.
it's cool. So you must be more of an audio learner, because for audio, it's like the floor music is probably super important to lock in on, or things you
Yeah.
say, or your team cheering. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people are more visual. So they need to like see the table. They need to see where their hands are going to go on the floor. They need to spot the bar. But it's cool to kind of notice, oh, well, this is the type of thing that works for me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I love to like dig in right into the mind right away. Would you give us a little background of how did you get to college?
Okay, so I've been doing gymnastics since I was in diapers my whole life, as many gymnasts do. And so yeah, I loved it. I actually took a break when I was super young, but then I had come back, loved it ever since, got on team. And then all the way up to my sophomore year, I think it was my second year of level 10. Um, it was the summer before my sophomore year. There was a lot of things happening in my life. I kind of lost the love I had for gymnastics. My dad got sick, and so I was just like, I think it's best for me to be at home with my family. I mean, gymnastics takes up a ton of your time. And when you're in high school, all you really have time for is you go to school and you go to gymnastics right ever, and then it's time for bed. So it's just kind of like gymnastics overtakes your life. So I had took a break my sophomore year. Um, and prior to my sophomore year, I was talking to a lot of college coaches, Michigan State included. And typically sophomore year is a um very much a recruiting year for gymnastics where you can talk to colleges. All the colleges are looking at you and you keep in touch and they come watch you and they watch your meets. So I kind of missed out on that when I took off my sophomore year. But when I took that off, I kind of quickly realized, like, oh, I miss gymnastics. So a year later, my junior year, I came back. Um, I mean, the first day I came back, I did my series on the high beam. I just kind of got right back into where I was at before. And luckily, actually, sophomore year was COVID year, so there was no states, there wasn't regionals, there wasn't really a record of me missing a year. So that was kind of great for me. But luckily, I reached back out to Michigan State, and they'd come watch me, and so luckily they took me in.
Wow. And I want to just pause and say, some people are so freaked out about taking any time away or even going on vacation for a week because they're like, "Oh no, I will lose my dream if I go on a vacation for a week."
Mhm.
But you were able to go, "Okay, my family comes first in this time." And
Mhm.
then you came back full of gratitude and love for your sport that just like you bounced right back in. So for anybody who's afraid, like you can actually take breaks in the sport. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh,
Yay.
absolutely. And sometimes that's what you need, I think, too. Like, whether it's family, whether you're hurting, whether you have an injury, whether it's your friend, like anything, literally do what's best for yourself. Because ultimately, like, gymnastics isn't going to be here forever. And so, like, recognizing what you need is so important, I think.
Yeah. So I would love to chat more about your dad because I know, like, oh, I think I'm daddy's little girl. And to think about, my daddy getting sick and passing away is just devastating. I mean, I can't even
Yeah.
imagine. So he got sick when you were 13, right? So before you were even into high school?
No, he got sick my sophomore year.
Okay. So
So
that's
I
when he got sick.
was 15, maybe 14.
Okay. Okay. And so then, I mean, what was that like? That moment of, oh my gosh, my dad is human. Like,
Yeah, it was very surprising actually. Well, we had known his back was hurting for a while, and so we've got a whole bunch of tests done. Nothing was coming up. Him and my mom used to do like triathlons. They did a half Ironman. Like they were very active people. And so when my dad got sick, he kind of stopped, like he couldn't work out. It hurt too much. And so we were like, what's going on? And so when he got sick, it was just kind of like a big shift for us from like, it's kind of like clicked us into survival mode. Like we're human, like things happen, obviously. And so I think my mom was very good about like keeping us regulated and like this is okay, what's happening, and like just like soak up all the time you have. That was my biggest thing, like soaking up all the time I had with my dad, like visiting him in the hospital every day. Like that was just something so important to me because like you never know what will happen. And so like yeah, just like going back to taking time for yourself. And I think taking time off gymnastics really helped me focus on my dad more and spend more time with him and give him what he needed from me. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. Did he ever push back against like, no, go do gymnastics, kiddo? Like it's okay. Or, what was that decision like?
Yeah, he kind of was just like, I mean, like wherever you're at, like I'll meet you where you're at. And so like he had known that I was just like kind of iffy about it. And I mean, we were so close, me and my dad, like we would do a ton of projects together, like we put in a new deck, we would do flooring, the lights in our house. Like I was kind of his little like Bob the Builder, I guess. And so like one thing we loved to do was like watch hockey. And so I never used to get to watch hockey with them because the games would always be on while I was at practice. So I think that was another thing too, that like I got to spend a lot more time with him just after school. And so he was just kind of like, if you like, you're free to make that decision if you're feeling that. And so yeah, there was a little bit of pushback obviously because I've been doing it my whole life, but he trusted me in my decision. So
And I imagine that you are so grateful that you did that. Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that like the value of time. You can't even
Hmm.
understand
Oh yeah.
until yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
then he's getting sicker, but you're back in training, right? Is that
Hmm.
kind of how that worked?
Right. So after COVID came back, the gym was kind of like only we have rec classes at our gym, so only like half of us were in there kind of getting back into it. And so the hours were pretty small, so it was kind of manageable going back into it. It was a smooth transition back into gymnastics. Um and so yeah, that was my junior year, kind of finished out normal. And then going into my senior year is when he got pretty sick, which my senior year was pretty light with school, so I think that helped a lot. So I got to spend a lot of time with him, but actually a lot of my senior year he was in the hospital as well. So I would kind of miss gymnastics a lot to go to the hospital to see him. And the good part about that was that I was already committed to Michigan State, so I had known that I had a place, and they were aware of what was happening. So I think all those people just supporting me was super helpful.
Yeah, I bet like teammates and coaches and your future
Absolutely.
coaches all rallying and going like, do what you got to do.
Yeah. Hmm.
Gymnastics is just an after school sport.
Yeah,
Family's family.
exactly. Hmm.
Ugh. And did you notice any difference in the way that you approached your gymnastics? Did you ever bring kind of like sadness or fear into the gym, or were you able to leave it outside? Did you notice any kind of mental change or even more fortitude being in the
Hmm.
gym as your dad was kind of like nearing the end and struggling?
For me, it was more like I would say I'm pretty good at like separating those kind of things, like outside of the gym stuff and inside the gym, because I feel like if my head's not in the right place, like sometimes you could get hurt or like obviously you're not gonna have the outcome you want. So I'm pretty good about separating it. But one thing that did change in my mind was like the gratitude I had for my life and the gratitude that like I had that I could do this sport, and like all the opportunities that I had are just so amazing. And obviously, not everyone gets those opportunities. So it kind of opened my eyes just to be more grateful for everything that I do have. And like that, like realizing that, like, this is just life and this is like life goes on. You'll be okay. So I think that was something that really helped me through that.
Wow. And that's something I've heard from high level gymnasts consistently is a gratitude for their sport. That
Hmm.
it's not like you're a slave to it and you just have to do it. It's like when you get
Right.
to this point in college, you're there because you choose to be and
Hmm.
because you want to be and because you love it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, does that ever waver? Do you ever have moments where you're like, yikes, this is not feeling lovable today? I don't.
I mean, absolutely. Like, especially preseason, I think is so hard and just like draining, especially like coming in your first year, you're hit hard with school. You've never had college like this before. You don't really know what it's like. And then preseason, all the endless amount of hours that you put in to like your training, and it's like something you've never done before. Like you're doing outside workouts. I think it's just, yeah, it's very like sometimes obviously you're gonna have bad days, but just for me, it's more of like the super, super hard like training days that were kind of like, oh, well, this is not so fun. But obviously, if I don't work hard, then nothing's gonna come out of it. So I think like recognizing like, yeah, these days are hard, but I have my team around me and my coaches are helping me do this for the better of me and to better me. So yeah.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about that support system, and I always think about like, okay, 10-year-old, could you hold a handstand against a wall for 5 minutes on your own? No. Could you do it with your team? Yeah, probably. You know, if they're
Yeah,
all up there, they're all shaking, they're all like, it's okay, we got this. I mean, it's amazing what the power of a group
right.
can get through versus what you're
Hmm.
trying to do on your own. I mean,
Hmm.
how do you guys as a team keep keep everybody going on those miserable preseason butt kicking days?
So one of the big things about our team is like our energy. A lot of us have very loud personalities, and our team is very well knit together. We're all super close, and I think that's something that's so important. And so like a lot like we all hang out outside of gymnastics and we're just all very close friends. And so one thing about our team when we're doing like hard workouts or literally just every day at practice is we're always cheering. And I think just like we're always cheering, we're always checking up on each other, including the coaches. I think that's also something very important. The coaches are very close with us. And so they're always giving us words of encouragement and like checking in on people like, hey, are you okay? I noticed that you were having an off day, just things like that. Like little things go such a long way. And I think we're very fortunate to have a team that's super close like that and super encouraging to us. And I know two of the girls on our team just went to nationals this week. And so they had to practice by themselves. And so a lot of us just came and watched to support them. And so I think that's something very special that our team has is like how supportive we are. Even though we couldn't make it as a team, just supporting those who made it and being happy for them. So
Yeah. Now, do you think that was like you got lucky and everybody meshes, or do you think that something within the culture of Michigan State has set everybody up to be close?
yeah, I think within the recruiting process, that's something that the coaches look for is a personality and a very like not necessarily outgoing, but someone who is willing to work hard, someone who's willing to support other people, just a genuine human, I think is something that the coaches definitely look for on our team. And I think it's really paying off the way our team works together.
Yeah, that makes me think like I think a lot of gymnasts are like, well, I have to be perfect to make it to college. I have to be perfect. But
Hmm.
actually, the more and more I talk to college gymnasts and I talk to college coaches, they're like, no, no, we want hardworking, good humans on our
Yeah.
team.
Hmm.
And and the rest like can actually continue to emerge throughout your college career.
Yeah. And I think too, I look back at where I was when they recruited me, and I'm like, sometimes I ask them, I'm like, how did you get me here? And how am I this good now? Like just seeing how far I've come with like the support that's been around me and just such a different environment has been so like amazing for everyone to grow in their own way. So,
Okay,
absolutely.
sign me up. I'm coming to Michigan State. It sounds amazing.
Yes.
Actually, fun fact, my dad is an alum of Michigan State.
Woo.
So I'll have to tell him I've been hanging out with the Michigan State alum. So
Yes.
now it sounds like it's just been all sort of like, yay, I'm great at gymnastics and I go to college. Um, I imagine that there's been some like mental or physical low points in your career. Can you
Mhm.
talk about kind of the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome in order to get where you are?
Okay, so both years actually, right? Like during preseason, I've pulled my hamstring. And so both years I've been trying to like get a floor routine together. I've been working on getting a full in for literally 5 years. And this year is finally the first year that I've ever done it on the floor. So thank goodness on that. But yeah, so I've pulled my hamstring and like I've had to sit out for a couple weeks at a time. And so like that has set me back from being in floor because the endurance that comes in with it. And whatever else. But the biggest thing that we talk about is like either way, they know, like my coaches know that no matter what injury I have, like I can still obviously do bars when I pull my hamstring. So that's something that's important to them is like focusing on what I can do instead of like what I can't and what I will get back to. And so normally both seasons I've been here, during the season, my ankles and my shins hurt so bad that I'll only train bars and vault because those are the only two that I compete. And so injuries like to them are very like real and like they know we're hurting, so they accommodate us in the best way. And I think that's super helpful and helps our bodies recover in a way that they never got to before. Because I think in club we're so self-driven and that like it's for us, like college coaches are looking at you all the time. Like, I mean, it feels like there's no grace, which there is, but like you're just so self-driven that you just want to keep going and going and going. And so I think it's helpful to have like your trainers and your coaches telling you like no, like take a step back and realize what you can do and kind of like focus on that instead of like oh like you can't do floor, but just focus on like how much you've grown in these other areas. And when you're healthy, go ahead, like work hard and get where you want to be. But taking time off is so beneficial when you're hurt. Like just take a step back and remember like this, like for the long run, absolutely you need to take time off because little injuries can lead to something bigger always. So,
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm curious if you could go back to, age 11, 12, when you're just like pushing, 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 big dreams.
mhm.
With what you know now, would you do anything differently as far as like how far you push your body in practice?
um, yeah, I think I think I would. I think I would probably honestly not take more time off, but just be more cautious about how my body was feeling and doing what's best for my body because gymnastics isn't going to be there forever, but your body will live on longer than gymnastics. And so, like, it's just so important to recognize, like, yeah, I'm hurting, and yeah, it's okay to take time off. And sometimes that's what people need, time off. And I mean, like, there's a ton of stories where people are like, oh, like, I was struggling with this one skill. I took a week off, and now I'm doing it perfectly. Like, sometimes you just need to take a step back and, like, reset, and that'll just work in your brain.
Yep. Yep. That's like, so the whole time we're talking, I'm thinking of this group training that I led last night with a bunch of kind of like level 7 and 8 gymnasts. And the topic was turning your disadvantages into advantages. And
Hmm.
like the girl who breaks her finger gets really good at back tucks on the beam or really, really good at switch leaps on the beam because that's all she
Hmm.
can work when she goes to the beam. And so it sounds like for you, you've kind of done that, that you see these
Right.
things and you're like, okay, well, how can we make this a good thing? Like, oh, okay, I get to rest. Hooray. I needed that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Instead of like, oh no, this is bad. This is going to be horrible, or
Yeah.
whatever. You're like, yeah, I took a year. Your body probably felt incredible when you went
Oh,
back into the
yeah.
gym.
Yeah. And too, like, even when I am competing, like on the other side of that, like, yeah, my body may be hurting, but I can do these skills. And like I'm grateful that I can do vaults and do bars without being in like crazy pain as I would be if I did floor, like kind of just looking at it the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you kids out there who think you're just so tough and you have to push so hard and you're not going to tell anybody that you're hurting, Sage says, like, it's okay to like, maybe speak up and back off a little
Yes.
bit to save your
Hmm.
little body.
Yes.
From
And you're
my
so
aching
young
back,
too.
I can
Yeah.
tell you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you heal so fast, when you're
Oh, yeah.
younger.
Hmm.
It's a gift to be able to, I know it's a
Exactly.
nightmare to have to scale back for a week, a nightmare when you have deadlines, but if you give yourself that gift, it just sets you up for so much more success.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, have you ever struggled with confidence? Are there any kind of skill nemesises that you have out there or moments where you had trouble with the mental side?
So, absolutely. I think I come off as a very confident person, just the way I perform. But my entire freshman year, I was struggling with my confidence. And obviously I still am today, but it's gotten a lot better. And as this season, my sophomore season has gone on, my confidence has shown in a way that of my scores and how I'm performing in vault and bars. But specifically my freshman year on vault, I had come in and we didn't really have a coach on floor and vault because ours had just moved to a different school. So we were kind of looking for a coach. So in the summer, we were just kind of on our own. We didn't really have any help. We got what we could, but so I kind of fell behind in vault specifically. And my vault wasn't how it was in club. And I was just feeling like super behind and like, just like, what am I doing wrong? And why isn't this how it was? And so that kind of just like tanks my confidence. And I wasn't performing as well as I could have. I would land a lot with my chest down, and I don't know, I just kind of lost hope in the fact that my vault's good. And I've never like up until now, I've never like believed that my gymnastics was good. And that's something huge that my coaches would always talk to me about. We have these meetings, these individual meetings, like before and after season. And something that we talked about was like building on my confidence because they know how good of a gymnast I can be if I'm just confident in my gymnastics. And so I've seen that firsthand this year, just working on being like, okay, yeah, I've done all these reps and I can make a bar routine and my lines can be clean. And I know that I'm good at this. And so I think for a lot of people that could help just understanding that like confidence goes such a long way. And like being confident isn't being cocky either. So yeah, I also my freshman year had met with a sports psychologist and she had helped me a lot as well. Just she talks a lot about reframing your thoughts. And so like before you go, like instead of thinking like, oh, I'm gonna fall or oh great, here I have to go again, like maybe like, oh yeah, I get to do another turn, or like I'm gonna focus on this specific thing so I don't fall. Just different things like that helped me a lot in excelling this year.
Yeah, it's back to the audio, like the way you talk to yourself. So
Yeah,
that's like your ticket is if you're saying the right thing to yourself, you're good. And if you're
yeah.
not, then confidence goes down.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really, I'm going to say inspiring to hear that someone who goes out and debuts 9-9 on their vault in their freshman year, who's like, my vault is not good. You know, we all
Yeah.
have that, right? Where, oh, it's not good. I'm not that
Yeah.
good here. Like the imposter syndrome. I think that
Hmm.
that comes along with gymnastics in general. Like
Yeah.
anybody, does anybody really feel like they're good enough? Mm,
Right. Yeah. And things like everyone around me too, like, oh, Sage, you're so good. You're so good. Like everyone just like kind of helping me build my confidence too. Like you're not alone in that. So like I know a lot of me too. I'm like looking at other people on the team. I'm like, wow, they're amazing. But knowing that they feel the same way about me and that they're so amazing and they think that I'm amazing too is just like so it gives me confidence in that. So
yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. We always do mental things because there's a payoff or like there's a reason why. So I wonder if there's a risk if you fully stepped into confidence and you were like, I am amazing. I deserve to be here. I'm a great teammate. Like, let's do this. If you really, truly 100% let that in, what's the risk? Any
hmm.
idea?
Honestly, I think I think that would pay off only for a certain amount of time because I think like you're so confident and so you would excel, but once you keep excelling and then your ego starts building up higher and higher and higher. And I think at some point you can hit a wall. And then I think that when you're so confident and you know how good you can do, and then when you don't reach perfection, if that's where you're at, or if you don't reach how far you can go, then you're super disappointed and it seems like you're back to square one. So I think finding a balance in between that is super important, like of obviously being confident, but knowing it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. It's impossible to be perfect. So, like, just realizing that within yourself and understanding that, yeah, I am good at vault, but sometimes I'm going to take a step. Sometimes I'm going to land with my chest down. Sometimes I'm not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Okay. Can I pick on you a little bit?
Yeah.
So I think this is such a great demonstration where, you are so kind and you're so humble. And there's almost like this little fear of, well, I don't want my ego to get in the way. And then I just like have this big face plant because I
Yeah.
wasn't like backing it up with action, or then I'm going to be so disappointed if I start to actually expect greatness from myself. So I'm just going to like stay in this little sweet medium-sized box that's like, it's
Yep.
okay. I don't have to be the best. So I'm just like, I think it's just cool to look at that and go, can Sage be amazing and confident and kind and a hard worker and happy and be allowed to not be perfect and
Yeah.
like all together?
Mhm.
Is that possible? You know?
I absolutely think so. But I mean, yeah, it would take a lot of practice. I think like mentally, I for me personally, mentally, it takes me a lot longer to I guess attain those attributes rather than like physically. I think
Mm.
well, obviously I was growing up physically like listening to corrections and fixing things like that. So, like mentally it's just a different ball game. And so obviously everyone's different, but yeah, I think I could definitely get there, but I think it would take a lot of work and a lot of time. But yeah.
Yeah, and look how far you've come in a year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the only reason I picked on you about that is because I think it's such a common thing where, kind, wonderful humans are like, "Well, I don't wanna be so big that I just get weird," or
Yeah.
that I start making mistakes and it doesn't feel okay. Like,
Yeah.
there's this amazing strength in humility, and I think it also can coexist with this acceptance that you're awesome and you're so like, you can totally trust yourself out there
Yeah.
and like, receive those compliments and really
Right.
let them in. Like, that
Yeah.
I would say if I'm gonna give you a little challenge, it'd be like, just take those compliments and, like, own them because
Okay, thank you.
there's just so much, so much that can happen when you just step out and you're like, "All right, let's do this. I can
Right.
do this."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but like you said, everything's a process. Building confidence is
Mhm.
a process. So, now did you ever hit any mental blocks in gymnastics?
Um, I I don't think I've never, like, had a mental block on, like, learning a skill, but I think I've had a mental block, like, on my vault specifically. My freshman year, I struggled well, both years actually. In the middle of the season, I get to this place where my vault timing's off, and so I'm not sticking my vault, like, I'm hopping forward on my vaults, and just it's just this, like, drought of, like, a month where my vaults are not where I want them to be, and, like, my words aren't helping. Like, I think it comes to a point in the season where I'm not getting enough numbers because,
Mm.
we shorten up we have maybe 2 practices a week because 'cause we're traveling every weekend, and so, like, I just get to this place where I'm just struggling and I'm doing the same thing over and over, and nothing seems to be helping, and something so big for me that has helped me is just, like, taking a step back and, like, being like, "Okay, these vaults that I'm doing aren't pointless. Like, even though I'm doing the same thing, even though they're not where I want them to be, they're not pointless. I'm getting numbers in, I'm recognizing what I'm doing wrong, and I get to this place where it's something different is wrong every time, so it seems like nothing I do to fix it is working because then something else kind of falls apart. And so, like, taking a step back and recognizing that there's good in what I'm doing, I think is super good even for the confidence too. Um, but yeah, taking a step back helps me a lot.
Yeah, well, and I would say if you are doing the same thing wrong every time over and over, that's not useful, but you can at least acknowledge, okay, fixed that, then whack-a-mole over here popped up, so we're gonna fix that. Okay, now we're gonna work on this, and like every little mole you whack down, every little, technical thing you adjust, that's a
Mhm.
win, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah, like, okay, if my landing can be better on this one, great, it was. Okay, yeah, my board position was a little off. That's okay. Let's fix that. Well, now my block feels funny. Okay, let's fix that. And you're just like in this fixing mode. The
Mhm.
fixing, it totally counts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then
then
you're
when you go ahead.
no, go ahead.
And then when you, like, do it once, then you kinda know, like, next time, what can I do differently? Or, like, what can I be better at to make this process go faster, make this drought over sooner. And so, yeah, because last year, I think I kind of went through it. It feels like the whole season, or a good chunk of the season. And this year it seemed to be only like 2 or 3 weeks. And so, yeah, I'm definitely getting better each year. And it's so nice to see the progress too.
Yeah. That's something like when anybody has kind of a little struggle like that where you're just battling with a skill, progress is that each battle gets shorter. That you
Hmm.
sort of figure out the formula to get out of it, and then you're like, "Oh, yeah, this
Hmm.
is what happens. Okay, let's play whack-a-mole as long as we need to, and then there's gonna be a day where it all fits and it all clicks." And you
Hmm.
trust your
Yeah.
process as much as you're trusting yourself.
Hmm.
Versus when you're a freshman, you're like, "Oh, no, this is not good. What's happening?" Because you don't know your
Yeah.
process yet. But then you climb out of the
Hmm.
hole and you're like, "Oh, okay. I know this
Yeah.
hole. I know how to get out of this. This is not a big deal."
Yeah. And as a freshman too, I feel like you always feel threatened in the sense like I just got here, like maybe they can kick me off the team. I know they would never do that, but it's just kind of like a thought in the back of your head, like you're coming in against, not against, but with all these amazing girls who are just amazing as you. And like it's so intimidating coming in seeing that because in club, it's like there's girls at different levels all around you. And so like when you're coming into college, it's just like very eye-opening to see like, oh, and like something that was hard for me freshman year was recognizing that I belonged there. I felt like, oh, I'm not good enough to be here and whatever. But like yeah, just recognizing like they recruited me here for a reason and they see the potential that I have. And so like why not show them what I can do? And I am on the same level as these other girls that I'm with. So
Yeah, what a great reframe. And I think everybody
yeah.
out there who's maybe already committed, but having that imposter syndrome before they get to college, I think that's a pretty common experience to be
Yeah.
like, they chose me for a reason. I do
Right.
belong. I
Yeah.
belong. I belong. I belong.
Hmm.
I'm enough. I'm good enough.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
just to have those little like fake it till you make it moments with your thoughts, it's a
Hmm.
lot more productive than saying, "Oh, no, I'm not good enough. They're gonna kick me off. This is not good. Like, I'm gonna fall."
Yeah.
All of those thoughts are just not useful, you know?
Yeah.
You can
Hmm.
think other things that will be way more productive.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, so Sage, where do you wanna go? What would be, like, the definition of success for you in your gymnastics career?
So Um, I would like to go to nationals. Not only as a team, but if we don't make it as a team, then individually, I'd like to go to nationals for vault. I think that would be such a cool experience. Um, but one thing I do struggle with that is like there's one meet, like you get one chance to qualify for nationals, and so that's something I was wrestling with lately, but honestly, that's okay. I have plenty more, I have 2 more years. I mean, and our team is just it just keeps building off of each other. We keep reaching higher and doing bigger things each year. So I think that's something that's also driving me. But yeah, I would say just to go to nationals, whether it's as a team or an individual. Either way, yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm rooting for you.
Thank
And
you.
you think I like to think of it like regionals is just practice. It's just
Yeah.
practice for the next regionals, and like
Hmm.
this last regionals, you got, I'm sure, tons of wisdom about
Yeah.
how you perform and what works and what doesn't. And then you can go to the next one and just practice again, and that can kind of take the little like the bite out of it or like the intensity of I
Yeah.
have to be perfect today. Versus
Hmm.
like, no, I've actually done this ball for 6 years and I'm just gonna run down the runway and be in the right position when I
Yeah.
get on the table, and then I'm gonna smile and salute. It's gonna be
Yep.
great.
Exactly. Hmm.
And we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Muscle memory too is like it's so real, and that is what's also been um with me this year. I guess like just knowing like all I have to do is the same thing as I do every single time, and it'll just be there. And it seems so like mindless, but it's true. Like that's kind of what I need on vault, like to just be mindless and know that it'll be there, and it will.
Yes. Yes. Well, Sage, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
Of course. Thank you.
So, if anybody wants to follow you or keep track of your journey, where's the best way to follow you?
Probably Instagram.
Awesome. We'll put your handle in the show notes. Do you want to rattle it off real fast?
It's just Sage Kellerman.
Easy
So,
peasy.
yep.
Awesome. Well, follow Sage. We are going to be cheering you on. And thank you again. This has been so great.
Thank you.